You know, the last thing I saw the Chiefs do last night was Harrison Butker kick it out of bounds after they take the lead, and then the Jaguars get the ball back, which turned out to be their game-winning drive. I kid you not. I saw Butker kick it out of bounds. I go, well, that's really bad, on what turned out to be the game-winning drive for the Jacksonville Jaguars, who beat the Chiefs last night 31-28. And I don't know what happened. I guess, you know, when you wake up at the time that we do and you don't nap and you got 3 little kids, it just, you know, you kind of doze off. And it probably was for the best, because I woke up with about 10 seconds left in the game and the Chiefs are down 31-28. And at that point, they need a miracle, and it doesn't happen. And then my next question I ask myself is, did Mark hit his parlay? And, well, I knew he needed a lot to happen last night, but most importantly, he needed the Chiefs to win the game, and that did not happen. So you came up just a couple short on that big parlay last night, Mark.
Yep, I needed Butker to kick the game-tying field goal to send it into overtime, and then Chiefs win in overtime, and then it would have hit.
Oh,
so close.
Oh, so close,
if
man.
If they hadn't had the holding on the kick return that brought them way back to the 10-yard line, I think they could have had a chance with all 3 timeouts.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a very good point. See, I missed a little bit of that, too, because I was just sitting there with drool all over me in the middle of the game in the fourth quarter there. So, oh man, but that, the Chiefs are now 2-3 on the season. This is not what we knew. The start of the year was going to be hard. I don't think we had 2-3 with a loss to the Jaguars penciled in there. And let's be honest, Trevor Lawrence outplayed Patrick Mahomes last night. Is that an unfair statement to make? I don't think it is. He outplayed him.
It's close. It's close. Trevor Lawrence had the fumble at the goal line. Patrick Mahomes had the pick 6.
Yes.
Mahomes was the first quarterback this season to have 300 yards passing, 50 yards rushing, and 1 touchdown passing, 1 touchdown rush. So there is that.
Well, he's doing a lot, right?
He's doing
but
a lot.
When it came down to it, in the clutch, it was Trevor Lawrence making some of the biggest plays of the game.
It's true.
And you got to give him that much. I'm not saying I would trade Mahomes for Lawrence. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying any of that. I wouldn't trade him for anybody in the league. I'm just saying last night, Trevor Lawrence, especially on that big third down, I just saw the replay here on their game-winning drive. They go down the field. They hit a 33-yard big strike, which sets up the eventual game-winning touchdown, and the Jaguars get the win. They're 4-1. The Chiefs are sitting there at 2-3. We'll talk to Kendall Gammon coming up in 1 hour on KCMO Talk Radio. And to make your morning a little better, I did find this out. Mark doesn't even know about this. Neither does John. We will have a giveaway tomorrow. 4 chances to win. Tickets to see Mark Sky, Phil Wickham at Cable Dahmer tomorrow night. We're doing a last-minute ticket blast. Our folks got in touch with their people, and they said, we've got 8 tickets for you Wednesday morning. Give them away on the show. So we're doing that tomorrow morning. We'll have details later this morning on that here on KCMO. But tomorrow morning, 8 tickets, 4 chances to win. Phil Wickham, who's playing Cable Dahmer Arena tomorrow night. I couldn't get you an extra pair, Mark. I got to give them to the people. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
But that's hopefully a way to get your morning on the right track here on KCMO Talk Radio. Now, something that was written in the Kansas City Star yesterday from Sam McDowell was about the Chiefs and obviously the questions around the future stadium and what that looks like. Well, take a look at this. The headline here reads from Sam McDowell, Chiefs seek new football stadium designs, but forge ahead on renovation option. They write here, the Chiefs this week will enact a 6-week process seeking applicants to design a possible new closed-roof stadium in Kansas. The Chiefs have retained CAA Icon to evaluate those applications. That's if that is the route that they choose. The Star writes here, as we've said many times during the process, the Chiefs are weighing 2 vastly different options. Of course, they're talking about renovating Arrowhead or talking about building new in Kansas. But within this piece from Sam McDowell at the Kansas City Star, and he talked with Mark Donovan, the Chiefs president, yesterday for this piece, this was the highlight of the entire piece, and I feel like it got buried. Donovan said the team met again last week with Populous, the Kansas City-based international architectural firm tasked with designing the option of a renovated Arrowhead Stadium. They provided another set of renderings for that possible project. The other possibility, as McDowell writes here, the Chiefs will enact a 6-week process seeking applicants to design a possible new closed-roof stadium in Kansas. And that will happen this week if it does end up happening. So we have said for a long time that the deadline, at least the theoretical deadline, for the Kansas City Royals to go to the state of Kansas is the end of this month. That gives the state of Kansas several weeks to evaluate a star bond district, what exactly it would look like, and whether or not it would make any sense for the state of Kansas to go into the star bond deal with either or both of these two teams. The Chiefs saying that they are enacting a 6-week process seeking applicants to design a possible new closed-roof stadium in Kansas. Well, that tells me that there still is a lot of work to be done. If you are just beginning the process of enacting a 6-week process for applicants to design a possible new closed-roof stadium, how serious are you about this? I mean, I admit, I've been very transparent with you on what I know. Yesterday, I told you exclusively here on KCMO that conversations are progressing with the Royals up in the Northland. That process is moving along, and it is more serious than it has ever been. It doesn't mean they're going there. I'm not making any grandiose prediction. I'm just saying the process is moving along in North Kansas City. For the Chiefs, who have been, I think, really waiting for the Royals to make their move, and then the Chiefs would follow up with their move, the Chiefs sitting here saying in the Kansas City Star piece that this week will begin a 6-week process seeking applicants to design a possible new closed-roof stadium. Well, if you're in a 6-week process just trying to find applicants to design the stadium, I mean, that's like saying I'm going to build a new house and you're just starting to interview contractors. That's not all that close to being done with the process, John, is it?
You can send out invitations for bids with Christmas cards, right? Because we're coming into the holidays. What's going to happen in 6 weeks? Yeah. Oh, hey, holiday, taking a break.
The whole world's going to shut down in about 6 weeks, right? I mean, no real business is getting done between the week before Thanksgiving and New Year's. So all of a sudden, you're looking at a process for the Kansas City Chiefs that, if they go that route, likely extends into 2026. Just do the math. It doesn't make any sense as to how they would find themselves in a position to be able to tell the state of Kansas by the end of this year, we will have an answer for you on a potential star bond project in the state of Kansas, especially when the state of Kansas is saying we want something in a best case scenario, based on what Ty Masterson has told us, by the end of October. Hey, there's just no way. There is just no way based on what the Kansas City Star reported last night. So that would lead me to believe that if you want to figure out who's in the lead when it comes to the Chiefs, staying at Arrowhead, which I always thought was in the lead for various reasons, is definitely in the lead right now. It doesn't mean that Kansas is off the table at all. It just means if this reporting from the Kansas City Star is correct and I'm interpreting it right, then they're not all that close to making a decision, at least when it comes to the Chiefs, on what they're going to do. Coming up next on KCMO Talk Radio as we get it rolling on a Tuesday. The story that I told you about yesterday that I hoped would start making national waves looks like it is. And that is a good thing because this needs to be exposed. We'll tell you what it is coming up next. Yesterday, I shared with you in the 8 o'clock hour that I was really hoping this story about this guy, Jay Jones, in Virginia would make its way across the country and would not just get attention here in Kansas City, but would also get attention in Los Angeles, New York, Miami, Dallas, wherever. This should be a national story based on what this country has been through over the last several weeks. And that is the guy who's running for attorney general as a Democrat in the state of Virginia, having text messages of his leaked, talking about how if he had to, in his words, put a bullet into Hitler, Pol Pot, or a fellow Republican in the state legislature there in Virginia at the time the text was released, he would pick the Republican for both bullets. That's what this man, Jay Jones, said. Then we have this. Jay Jones also saying, according to multiple reports, that if more police officers were killed, they would shoot fewer people. This came courtesy of a former colleague in the state legislature. Republican Carrie Conyer told Virginia Scoop yesterday that during a 2020 conversation about qualified immunity, she told Jones that without the legal protection, police officers would get killed. Jones responded by saying, quote, well, maybe if a few of them died, that they would move on, not shooting people and not killing people. Now, this is right now a he said, she said story. I will readily admit that. But based on the text messages that we have from this guy, Jay Jones, would that shock you at all? This guy is totally unqualified to run for office, especially in the wake of really just jarring political violence this country has been through over the last several weeks. Whether it's at a Minneapolis school, whether it's at a Colorado school, whether it's Charlie Kirk getting assassinated, whether it's ICE agents being targeted. And the overwhelming theme in many of these is left-wing political violence. Now, this does not mean that every person who disagrees with you politically is potentially going to commit some heinous act of violence. That's not true. Let's be very clear. That's not true. But the political violence over the last few weeks is overwhelmingly cutting one way. That is indisputable. And now you have somebody running for a very prominent office in the state of Virginia who has text messages and allegations against him, clearly showing that he is not only accepting, but in many ways promoting violence against his political opponents. It's absolutely disgusting and heinous, but it's sadly the world that we find ourselves in right now. And that's why we tie this back to so much of the conversation we've had over the last month here on this show, which is that you can disagree, rightfully so, with anybody in this country about their policies. But the minute that you start excusing violence, calling people fascists, calling people Hitler wannabes, or invoking Pol Pot. I mean, there's a throwback. Pol Pot getting some love even these days. My gosh. You have crossed the line. And it's how we end up in a place where people just accept political violence for what it is. And that is not a place that America should be in, for the left or for the right. But right now, you can't do the both sides thing. I'm sorry, you just can't do it. Not in America today, based on what the last month plus has looked like in this country. You can't right now. So this came out yesterday, and how does it get covered? This is from the Associated Press. Here's the headline from the AP. Trump's GOP seizes on violent rhetoric from Virginia Attorney General candidate as high-stakes elections loom. Republicans are seizing on recently unearthed violent rhetoric from Virginia's Democratic candidate for Attorney General in a push to reshape the state's governor's race and tarnish the Democratic Party nationally less than a month before the election. Somehow they make the Republicans out to be the bad guys here in this piece at the AP,
yeah.
John.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking of the incidents when we say it's mostly on one side. Surely if it were on the other, we'd hear all about it chapter and verse. But so far, there have just been these nebulous stretches of belief, you know, to connect some people.
Or they do the whole both sides thing, which right now in this country over the last few weeks, we're not talking both sides, okay? No. That's not where the conversation should be in America based on the actual things that have taken place over the last few weeks. So for the AP to go, Republicans are seizing on recently unearthed violent rhetoric, or Trump's GOP seizes. What does that even mean?
They like action words.
Trump's GOP seizes? Okay, no, the story here is the dude running for AG in Virginia had text messages talking about killing a Republican colleague over Hitler. Stop with the so-and-so seizes thing, John. No.
How about candidate gifts Republicans? Gifts.
Yes.
How about that? Well, we use the word gift.
That is good. Violent rhetoric from Democrat candidate gifts Trump's GOP. Of course, they got to figure out how to get Trump's name into the headline, right? Mm-hmm. Trump's name has to be in the headline for him because to them, Trump's a bigger boogeyman than some guy saying he wants his political opponents dead. See, because invoking the word Trump is supposed to be in and of itself some form of violence because Trump is violence or something like that. I think I'm getting this formula down right after all these years. I believe it's something along those lines. That's how this works.
Not Trump, target of 2 assassination attempts.
No.
Didn't put that in there, did they?
That
wouldn't fit in the headline.
I got to find their headline on that. Trump's GOP seizes on 2 assassination attempts against Trump or something like that.
Yeah. Tries to make a
political statement.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. So this is a story that is getting legs. I'm glad it's getting legs. It needs to be talked about nationally. I know it's not a Kansas City thing, but based on the conversations we have had here transparently with you on KCMO in recent weeks. Now, you do have this guy, and it applies nationally because we need to see how our national figures respond to it. Specifically, will people call out their own side? That is an important thing to do in politics. And it's an important thing to do in life. You got to be able to call out your own spouse. You got to have friends that you can call out and they call you out. You want a spouse that's going to call you out. And in politics, you need your own people to call you out. That's how you get better. We all need that in life, in work, and in politics. And if we can't get people right now to call out this guy in Virginia, then they haven't learned a single lesson from the last few weeks. And I'm not going to hold my breath on that happening today, tomorrow, or next week. Pete Mundo on KCMO Talk Radio. Coming up here on 95.7 FM. And as always, we are streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Where are we at when it comes to the replacement for Kay Barnes, who replaced Frank White? There's something that I believe needs to happen in replacing and finding the next Jackson County executive that I'm not convinced is going to happen. But if we want to have a county that operates halfway decently, it should happen. I'll explain what that is next. 6:35, good morning. Chiefs lose. That was brutal last night, but we are here to bounce you back on a Tuesday morning on KCMO. Tirade Tuesdays, 2 hours away. So I think we'll get some good tirades this morning. Let's go to Derek. He's in Oak Grove. We were just talking about what's going on in Virginia. You got an AG wishing his political opponent's death. It's been a bad run on that front. What's going on, Derek? Good morning.
Good morning. I just wanted to ask you a question. That shooting, the attack on the Mormon church, was that guy a Trump supporter? Do you know?
He was a Trump supporter, Derek.
Exactly. So was that an insignificant attack in your opinion?
Oh, not at all. But the difference is I don't hear the president of the United States talking about, how it's acceptable to go shoot up churches. That's a big difference.
Who said that the Virginia guy was acceptable?
Well, Democrats have been asked about it, and no one is totally disavowing it.
Oh, stop, dude. The Democrats are milquetoast. You think they don't disavow violence? Come on.
No, tell me which prominent Democrat has told Jay Jones to drop out of the Virginia Attorney General's race?
Is that the question, or is it about whether or not they're supporting what he said? Because that's what you said originally.
Well, either one. Show me somebody who is totally disavowed it.
No, that's not the question. I can't tell you off the top of my head someone that's disavowed it. Why don't you tell me one person that supported it? Can you do that?
Well, I got this audio from Neera. I've got this audio from a former Joe Biden official. Her name is Neera Tanden.
in the Center for American Progress near Tandon who wants pro-life Democrats to run. Dude, you don't know what you're talking about. You're talking about like incredibly moderate Democrats that are basically conservative. You're hilarious.
Well, that actually disproves your point here, because she's someone who was asked to completely disavow what this guy Jay Jones said. And she did the whole, well, it was a private conversation. Here's the audio.
But can I also say in an interview with Leader Jeffries that can we stop with the pearl clutching about the mean tweets and sombrero tweets? That this week it came to light that a Democrat candidate for Attorney General State of Virginia called for the assassination of a political opponent, called for the assassination of that political opponent's family, and there's not one national Democrat calling for him to step aside. Not one. It's disgraceful.
Nira, let me let you respond to that, because that is going to be a big story, I think, in the coming days.
I mean,
and then we'll go to Andrea.
I absolutely think people should criticize that 100%. Yeah. I think it was a private conversation he had, but still awful and disgusting. Isn't calling for it public, but terrible. And it should be condemned. But then we should condemn that. But then you should condemn.
But Derek, there's always a but with these people.
Okay,
just call out your own side.
The Mormon shooting? Did Trump condemn the Mormon shooting and talk about how that guy supported him? Answer the question.
No, because it's irrelevant.
Oh, no, he didn't. Okay, so you only care about Nira Tandon, who is way less significant than Donald Trump, you freaking dork. Are you serious?
That could have been worse there, Derek. Thanks so much, buddy. I can tell you're interested in a truly honest back and forth. You can call me a dork. Trust me, I get called much worse by my 3 children. I'm here to tell you right now that, yes, the guy that shot up the Mormon church was a Trump supporter. That is different than someone saying you are excusing violence against people because of their politics. If you can't understand the difference in the conversation between prominent people in a Democrat Party calling their political opponents fascists and Hitler wannabes, and then people acting off of those words, and a crazy PTSD former veteran who happened to support Donald Trump going to a church and killing people, which has nothing to do with anything Trump has said about the Mormon church or the Mormon faith or anything of that matter. If you can't see the difference in those two things, then I can't help you, and you're not interested in honest dialogue. If Trump had had a lot of rhetoric against the Mormon church, and then one of his staunch supporters goes out there and attacks the Mormon church, yeah, then you have a conversation. Then you have a, yeah, but. That's not what's happened here. And I think that actually Derek is smart enough to know that. I actually believe that. Maybe that's me giving Derek too much credit, but I believe that. I think he's smart enough to understand that. I just don't think he wants to. Let's go to Jackson County. All right. Speaking of people in Jackson County that need a little gut check, they are trying to figure out who is going to replace Kay Barnes, who is replacing Frank White as the interim county executive, right? They've got a year for an interim executive to basically be a placeholder until they have an election next year. So Kay Barnes, the former Kansas City mayor, is going to be there for 30 days. But the legislature still has to select somebody else to hold the job for the next year. Kay Barnes can only do it for a month. So right now there are 15 people out there who have put their name into a hat to be the next county executive. And there's a bunch of people on the list I don't know. But you know who's on the list?
Oh, yeah.
You saw it?
Yes, I did.
Old Justice Hardy's on the list.
How about that? I was going to say 16 because mine's in the mail. I'm sending it out.
Oh, are you applying, John?
Oh, yeah. No, but besides that, yeah, I saw Justice Horn on the list.
Yep, he's on the list. Dan Tarwater's on the list. Phil Lavota's on the list.
And Duran, of course.
Duran McGee's on the list. Sean Smith cannot be on the list because you got to be a Democrat to be on the list. Because Frank White was a Democrat, which I don't have a problem with that rule at all. Keep it within the political party until the next election. That's fine by me. So there's like 15 people on the list. And a lot of people believe that it's probably Duran McGee's to lose. He's right now the chairman of the Jackson County Legislature. That being said, there's a debate going on within the Jackson County Legislature as to whether or not the interim executive should be allowed to run for county executive in 1 year. I don't think whoever becomes the interim should be allowed to run next year. I believe they should actually pass that. Because this is how we got into the Frank White mess in the first place. Frank replaced Mike Sanders on an interim basis, then he runs, and you've got a huge leg up when you're the interim and then you decide to run. It's kind of like being the incumbent. People know your name. They know who you are. They can obviously visualize you in the job. And I think that right now we need somebody in this role in Jackson County who is not thinking about winning an election, not thinking about future political power, just thinking about having this job for a year, getting the county back on track, bringing normalcy back to the legislature, and then getting out of politics, John. I think we need more of that right now.
Well, to your point, we got there in this situation where Frank was the interim, and then they were going to let him go, but then he never showed up for work, so nobody could tell him he was fired, right?
Yeah.
It's like
That's a good
Office
point.
Space.
Yeah,
We're going to fix the glitch.
There are a lot of parallels between the way Jackson County operates and Office Space.
Yeah, I think so.
We could probably do a segment taking the characters from Office Space and directly comparing them to people in Jackson County government. That would actually be a hoot. Who's Manny Abarca? That's what I'm thinking about right now. Oh, my gosh. Probably a couple of options there. Oh, but right now, if you're Jackson County and you want to try to bring normalcy, drop the politics for at least a year from the county government after what has been an incredibly unproductive last few years, really since Frank's reelection in 22, pass what you talked about passing yesterday. Make it so the interim is not motivated by the 2026 election, not motivated by their own political power or their political future, John.
I think that list would shrink all of a sudden, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I guarantee you, a guy like Phil Lavoda, who's been in studio, nice guy, was here with Keatsman. Listen, he wants to be the next county executive. Let's be very clear. He wants to be the power player directing Jackson County with at least one or both of these two professional sports teams. He has every right to do that. He should run in 26 if he wants to do that. But I don't think you can get somebody in there on an interim basis that's thinking about what's in their own best interests to run for election coming up in 12 months. You don't want that. Just so we're all on the same page, I'm going to take you behind the scenes for a second. Typically, I have a 4-hour show mapped out that John, Mark, and I can all look at and review. And I wish I could say I planned it this way, but I didn't. The President of the United States just posted something on Truth Social that is a direct response to what I wanted to talk to you about right now. The President writes here on Truth at 7:09 in the last few minutes. Deranged Jack Smith got caught with his hand in the cookie jar. A real sleazebag, he writes.
Such a nice man.
Okay. What is he referring to? What the President of the United States is referring to is the Arctic frost investigation. We found out yesterday in an explosive FBI document obtained by the Senate. The FBI targeted 8 Republican senators' personal cell phones for data as part of this Arctic frost investigation. And one of those senators is Missouri's own Josh Hawley. So the FBI in 2023 sought and obtained data about the senator's phone usage from January 4th through January 7th, 2021. That is obviously right in the middle of all the January 6th chaos from going on 5 years ago at this point. The data shows when and to whom a call is made, as well as the duration and general location data of the call. The data does not include the content of the call. Chuck Grassley from up in Iowa spoke about this yesterday, and here's what he had to say, including referencing our own Josh Hawley here in Missouri. And excuse me, this is Ron Johnson talking out of Wisconsin. Here's what he said yesterday about this investigation that was put on by President Biden's DOJ and was directly investigating, along with obviously President Trump. We all know what happened there, but also several members of the U.S. Senate, including Josh Hawley.
Timeline this. I think you've already got the FBI sheet that shows the number of members of Congress that were targeted. Representative Kelly, Senators Graham, Hagerty, Hawley, Sullivan, Tuberville, myself, Senator Lummis, and Blackburn. Now, this memo was dated September of 2023. To put it all into context, the Mar-a-Lago raid occurred in August of 2022. Jack Smith announced the indictments against President Trump in August of 2023. So this is almost 2 months later. They're casting this net, this fishing expedition against members of the Senate and the House. Again, I've been investigating this with Senator Grassley. This doesn't surprise me, but it should shock every American of what the Biden administration has done. And by the way, this is the first time I was targeted by the FBI. Under the Obama administration, the same thing happened to both Senator Grassley and I. As part of the Foreign Influence Task Force, we were giving a briefing to try and convince us that the Hunter Biden laptop was no big deal. Basically, trying to throw us off the track. So this is major corruption that's being revealed inside the Obama and Biden Department of Justice, the FBI.
That's Ron Johnson out of Wisconsin talking about this newly unearthed FBI document that shows that multiple members of the U.S. Senate were targeted by former special counsel Jack Smith in relation to January 6th, which, as I've said for 5.5 years now, was an absolute utter embarrassment for the people in charge. But to have a special counsel appointed by your political opponents and have them investigating the personal phone records of sitting members of the U.S. Senate from a bureaucrat that is unelected. If that doesn't send some chill up your spine as just an American left, right, or in the middle, I don't know what really will then, John, because if they'll do it to them, by golly, they'll do it to you whenever they want.
Well, too, and in the news, then they'll say, Trump's going to go after his enemies. Well, you know that because you were up to crap.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you very much. You're absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
You're absolutely right about that. They will basically use that and cut it one way. Meantime, you have, like, the president maybe doing his own investigation, right, when it comes to James Comey. And what do people say? Oh, this is so out of line. Well, which one is it? Is nobody above the law? Or do we play the game of understanding certain people are off limits? You can't spend 4 years under Joe Biden saying nobody is above the law and then be upset when it gets used against you. I admit I don't think any of this is good for the country, whether it's Jack Smith investigating Republicans or it's Trump going after Comey. None of it's good for the country because the end result is good people not wanting to get involved in the political arena. And God knows what we need more of right now is people who are not seeking fame and fortune, who are just decent people looking to give back. We need more of those people getting involved in politics. And when you see what the game has become, you think you're going to get a higher quality candidate or a lesser quality candidate. It will be the latter. It will be people looking for revenge. It will be people looking to mudsling. It will be people who are not going to D.C. or to, state houses for the right reasons. That's what's going to happen here. You're going to get more of the people who should not be in politics than you are high-quality people who we should want to get into politics. So that's the end result of all this, which hurts Democrats, Republicans, and most importantly, the country. But you can't sit here and say that like Trump's the guy starting all this. Not when you have this announcement yesterday, and what a name, the FBI's Arctic Frost investigation. How do you think they came up with that one?
I don't know. It's cool names.
It is. You know what? I got to give Biden's DOJ credit. That's the coolest thing they did. The name of their investigation into Republicans was called Arctic Frost. I got to find something good to say and nice to say, and I guess that's it. It's like naming hurricanes. Who comes up with these things?
Yeah.
But it does go to show you that this thing ran pretty deep. And we'll probably learn more about it going forward. So we are monitoring this trial in Clay County. Joshua Rocha, the man convicted of first-degree murder in the killing of North Kansas City police officer Daniel Vasquez. So closing arguments started this week. And I understand that the defense has a job to do here. But it was beyond disturbing to me as I'm hearing some of the local reports yesterday from the courtroom that what the defense is basically saying is that because of Joshua Rocha's upbringing, he should not receive the death penalty. I admit I am right now personally torn on the death penalty. It's something I didn't advocate for it, but I thought it was an acceptable punishment for people who have committed some of the most heinous crimes in the country. I've had an internal debate with myself over the last few weeks as to whether or not that's the right answer, but neither here nor there. What I definitely know is that one's upbringing cannot be determining what kind of sentence you ultimately get. They can't at all be related. If they go ahead with the death penalty for Joshua Rocha, it has to be because, first off, the prosecution, the county, the state made its case effectively against Rocha, who is alleged to have killed or now convicted of killing Daniel Vasquez. Everyone knew it was him. It was during a routine traffic stop going back 3.5 years in North Kansas City. He gets pulled over for what? Expired temp tags, something ridiculous like that. And he walks out and he ends up killing Daniel Vasquez, a North Kansas City police officer. But if we go down the road of determining sentences, not based on what somebody did and whether that crime is worthy of a specific sentence, but the criminal's upbringing and why their upbringing should lessen the sentence, that is a dangerous road to go down. And it's something that we've been kind of playing footsie with on not just local crime in Kansas City, but crime around the country. So first, here's the report from Fox 4 last night, John Holt.
The defense rests in the death penalty phase of the man accused of killing a North Kansas City police officer. The jury that convicted Joshua Rocha of murdering North Kansas City officer Daniel Vasquez 3 years ago must now decide whether he lives or dies. Among witnesses today, Rocha's father, Kenneth Waterbury, who spent most of Rocha's life in federal prison, but says he stayed in touch with his son. He testified they were close and planned to open a tattoo business when he got out of prison last August. Also today, defense lawyers called the clinical neuropsychologist who diagnosed Rocha with autism. The sentencing phase will continue tomorrow in Clay County with closing argument.
All right, that's John Holt, Fox 4. So we're supposed to sit here and consider whether or not Joshua Rocha should get the death penalty and be swayed by the fact that his father, who has spent most of his life in prison, was released from prison, and the plan was to open up a tattoo shop with his son, who's now facing the death penalty. Is that supposed to make me feel warm and fuzzy inside?
Nobody cares.
It's irrelevant. Nobody should care. And that's for Joshua Rocha, but it's also for anybody else who commits any kind of crime, whether it's in Kansas City or anywhere else in the country. One of the weird, and frankly, in hindsight, well, many of us didn't need hindsight to realize this, but over the last 5 years, we've been in this place of like, oh, well, the real victim in our criminal justice system is the felon. The real victim here in all this is the person committing the crime because of their upbringing, because they haven't had enough resources to tap into from the government, and that's why they turn to a life of crime. It reminds me of something ridiculous that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez once said. I know there's a lot of those out there. Yeah. Remember? She was like... That
was the quote.
That was the quote, yeah. It's when they were doing all the looting and whatnot during the Summer of Love, and she was like, people are just trying to eat. It's like, no, they're robbing the Apple store, okay? No, that's not what's going on. They're not taking raspberries from the local Hy-Vee. Okay? That's not what's happening here. So, no, we cannot use somebody's upbringing as an excuse for lessening a sentence. The defense is doing its job here, but at the same time, culturally and societally, that's not the place that we want to go. We tried that the last few years. We slap people on the wrist. We go out there and we say, well, you know, they're a victim of their surroundings. They grew up in a tough spot. The dad wasn't around. No, that is not an excuse for, God forbid, killing a cop, but committing any crime, whether it's in Kansas City, Clay County, or anywhere in the country. John, we cannot go down this dangerous road and slippery slope.
I'm with you as far as it goes with factoring into sentencing. It may be worthy of merit to consider after the fact as we try to address how we handle mental illness in America. If anything, we're not handling some of these people like Rocha correctly, just in a big general picture, not him specifically. But I think after the facts, after the sentencing is when you might consider these types of things.
And I'm okay with that after the sentencing, all right? But if this guy's going to get the death penalty, you give him the death penalty because the prosecution made their case. They made the case effectively, and the decision has been made to invoke the death penalty, and that's it. But yeah, there's a mental health conversation to have in the country, absolutely. But one of the other things they're saying about this guy Rocha in North Kansas City is that, well, he's got autism. What does that have to do with anything? I mean, please tell me what autism has to do with anything involving a man going out there and killing a cop in broad daylight on a routine traffic stop. Am I supposed to feel sympathy for him over that? Oh, dad wasn't around and he had autism. Okay, so what else do you want to excuse if that's the case then?
Well, that's where I was going with after the fact. We might consider the autism. I know my grandson is 7 and he has no concept of danger.
Yeah,
and
that's interesting.
So there are spectrum levels that we need to look into so that we know how to handle these things. But again, it doesn't factor into the sentencing.
Yeah, exactly, and it shouldn't. And then it's like, okay, well, some of us are actually trying to talk about autism, right? That's been a topic over the last few weeks. RFK's trying to dig into that. And what do we get told? Nope. Autism's beautiful. Nothing to see here. Don't look at the foods or the other cultural, societal issues, and certainly don't look at the vaccines. Wink, wink, nod, nod. Don't do any of that. Just, it's all beautiful. Life's great. Well, you can't have it both ways. If you're going to allege and make the case that autism and mental health and all these things may lead somebody to a life of crime, and then you have people like RFK saying, okay, let's try to figure out what's going on here and why autism has skyrocketed over the last 30 years. And I'm not saying it's one thing in particular. I'm not saying it's Tylenol and, pregnant women, or it's this vaccine or that's vaccine. But let's have a conversation about it, because clearly something is going on and something has changed. And if you do that, what do you get called? A conspiracy theorist nut job. So it's like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. That's the world that we find ourselves in right now with this stuff. 913-408-7957 is the text line and the studio line on KCMO Talk Radio. On the text line, Pete, does the excuse for criminal behavior and acts mean his parents should also get the death penalty? I see what you did there on the text line. And I know that you're saying that somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but you're right. If you're going to blame somebody's actions on basically somebody else, then is that somebody else responsible for those actions? That's the road you're going down here. Either we are all individuals who have different upbringings, and yes, some people are born on third base, some people are born 10 feet up the first baseline. I get it. You can't control that. But either you are responsible for your own decisions as an adult in America, or you're not. And for me, I'd much rather live in a world, and I think we're safer off being in a world and a country where we don't start pointing the finger, where your sentences in the criminal justice system are not in part decided by whether or not dad was around, by whether or not you have just an autism diagnosis. That doesn't seem like the move to make here. 913-408-7957. Pete, life without parole would be just fine for me. Now, I'm torn on it. Listen, I back the blue as much as anybody. So it's not about back in the blue or not back in the blue. But I admit, for the first time in my life, I have just been having those conversations with myself as to whether or not I am a believer in the death penalty. And I always have been traditionally for basically my entire adult life. But for some reason, the last few weeks probably ties back to some of what Erica Kirk said in the wake of Charlie's assassination, where she forgave the assassin and then basically avoided the topic and avoided wanting to be involved in the decision of the death penalty. It's just something that I have personally thought about a lot. So I I don't have the answer on that front, but I know there's obviously a lot of opinions on it across the board. Tirade Tuesday is coming up at the bottom of the hour on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. Stream us all morning long on the KCMO Talk Radio app. We have much more to get to with you as well. Coming up, one of your favorite news shows was going wild yesterday. I mean, they were ready for you to put on blackface. Or do we call it Latino face? I don't know. Who said that and why? Coming up next. Bad Bunny is getting a lot of discussion. I mean, the Chiefs lose last night, so I don't know how we feel about watching the Chiefs in the Super Bowl this year as they sit there at 2-3. I'm not going to bet on that one, Mark. I don't know. You may think that there are good odds that you can take up on the Chiefs winning a Super Bowl right now at 2-3, but I'm a hard pass.
I haven't looked at the odds yet. I'll do that in the next commercial break, but man, I still think they're going to have a good second half of the season when Rice comes back.
You are the eternal optimist.
Yes.
To that, John Anthony says,
I'm getting pissed now.
No, I'm with you. I don't want it to even make the playoffs, so we'll be drafting that much higher.
There you go.
We need some talent.
There you go. Hit the reset button on that second half of Mahomes' career. Get it going. Get it on a high note. Get a top 15 pick in the NFL draft, right? Mm-hmm. All right. Well, Bad Bunny's playing in the Super Bowl. Bad Bunny doesn't speak English, whatever. But Bad Bunny, as a result, also doubled down over the weekend hosting Saturday Night Live and saying, hey, you don't speak Spanish? Well, you got 4 months to figure it out and learn it. It's like, no, hold on a second here. I know I've seen a lot of people who are in my line of work being like, I don't know why this is such a big deal. I'm like, really? I think this is a huge story. You have the ultimate American institution, the Super Bowl. The only thing left of its kind. The Oscars are dead. There's no more TV shows that everybody sits around and watches on a Thursday night. There's no like Friends. There's no Seinfeld. There's nothing getting 20, 30, 40 million people watching it at the same time outside of the NFL. And the Super Bowl is obviously the crown jewel. It is the most Americana thing that we have left. The only thing in many ways that unites many of us. And now you've got this guy, Bad Bunny, who, yeah, is a global superstar. I get it. But at the same time, you would think that you would want to, in good faith with, the language of the country that we're in, have somebody who is out there and actually singing in the language of the country of the biggest event of the year. I don't think that's too much to ask. It's not a knock on speaking Spanish. It's about being pro-American and pro-Super Bowl and pro-American culture. Because the Super Bowl is really a celebration of American culture at its very core. And then you have the guy that's going to do the Super Bowl halftime show basically saying, go get yourself a Rosetta Stone. I mean, that's his approach. So the View's all over it, right? Oh, man, they are all over it, over on The View. And they're also upset because, and they're kind of making up this whole narrative, that Kristi Noem is going to go out there as Homeland Security Secretary and go to the Super Bowl and try to round up illegals or something like that who are showing up to see Bad Bunny. As if random people can just show up to the Super Bowl and scalp a ticket for $50. I mean, tell me you don't know how any of this works without telling me you don't know how any of this works. So here was The View in all their wisdom yesterday talking about Bad Bunny and the Super Bowl and what people should do, with Whoopi Goldberg suggesting you go brown face.
You're always funny too, Whoopi.
One thing I thought of, though, Kristi Noem, the one who killed the dog.
Cricket.
She killed Cricket, yeah.
Puppy.
Who does that? Who shoots a puppy? Only her. Anyway, she's threatening to go to the Super Bowl when Bad Bunny is there and round up all these people that are illegal immigrants. Do you think that she would go if it was Garth Brooks or Eminem or Taylor Swift or any other white person?
Let me understand what you're saying, because she's going to go to the Super Bowl and round up. How's she going to know who's who?
Because the Supreme Court has given permission to question anyone who has a Spanish accent or has a dark skin.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Everybody, get a little cocoa butter, sit in the sun. That's the first thing. And this is the only time you can probably ever do this, give yourself a Latin accent.
You know, Whoopi, that is
And
such a
just
good
see-
idea.
And see if she can tell who's who.
Who do
During
you think
the-
are buying
during-
Super Bowl tickets? I can't afford a Super Bowl ticket.
During the Nazi occupation, there was one country, I believe it was Denmark or Norway, one of those, where everybody put the Jewish star on.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they didn't know who was Jewish and who was not. So
because
what
you
you're saying
couldn't-
is
yes.
very smart.
And there you have the idiot Joy Behar show up on the back end and be like, yeah, here's our Nazi Hitler comparison of the day between Republicans and Hitler. Here we go. They had to fit that one. And I think it's in their contract to make at least one reference to Hitler and Nazis as it relates to this administration during their program. That's a required part of the contract from what I hear from my inside sources at Disney ABC. But everything about this is so gross on so many levels. You've got the start of the conversation talking about Kristi Noem saying that she is going to have ICE looking for illegals at the Super Bowl. I mean, if there's a place that you wouldn't be if you were an illegal immigrant, it's at the Super Bowl. Do you realize the nosebleeds are like 10 grand a ticket? Now, Homeland Security will be there because guess what? They have to be there for
They're
security
at all the games.
purposes. Exactly. It's the biggest event in America every single year. Of course, Homeland Security is naturally going to be there. And then Whoopi shows up and is like, yeah, make sure you do your brown face and put on your little Latino accents.
Maybe wear a sombrero and a
Yeah,
mustache.
exactly. You can do your own Hakeem Jeffries.
Órale! Arriba! Arriba!
There you go. And then you have Behar on the back end being like, yeah, this is, oh, man, here's my Nazi comparison of the morning. I mean, since I had to watch it and I got dumber, I had to play it for you.